Our next speaker is Joel Cartwright, Industry Principal for Consumer Products at Vistex. Joel, take it away.
Great. Thanks, John. Always a pleasure to attend the CPGmatters Lead Marketing Conference. Enjoy it very much. As John mentioned, my name is Joel Cartwright. I've been in consumer packaged goods industry for 25 plus years. The first 10 years on the manufacturing side in finance and accounting, sales operations roles, specifically related to trade management, trade optimization for companies like Sara Lee Foods, Plenty to Light, and Kimberly-Clark. The last 15 years I've spent on the software side for retail and food service applications, managing trade, optimization software, and I've done implementation, support, engineering, and product management. So talk to a lot of manufacturers in the space, and I see what's going on in the industry. But today, I want to talk about the optimization maturity levels, specifically how it relates to revenue growth management. Within this, we'll talk about kind of the trends within the industry, and also I'm going to talk about the sophistication levels in detail, kind of define those, and essentially understand, your level, as a manufacturer, where are you at in this optimization, data science, RGM journey, and then after you've defined it or we've understood that those levels, how does it apply to your overall process and how you can utilize each capability from the optimization trade level at those capability levels. So a lot to cover. So in the industry right now, we talk to a lot of manufacturers, consumer products manufacturers, and see a lot of RFPs for solutions and so forth. And it comes to the point of optimization and data science. Customers will say, I need optimization. I need data science. Help me with this IA, ML, all this great technology. And my question always back to them is, what are you going to do with it? What's the expectation that you will deliver? And a lot of times I get, I don't really know. I don't really know how I'm going to utilize it. So I try to help them explain that the data science and optimization can be used in customer planning. You may want to have to utilize it to do joint business planning, or is it, if you're going to do this, is everybody on board with this? So I speak with a lot of manufacturers and a lot of if not understanding of what it can be delivered or what's delivered within the tool or within the applications. Another thing I typically talk about is, are you effectively using it at all right now? Are you effectively using data science at all? A lot of the responses I get is no, we're not really sure, or I can't afford the software or the resources really fully effectively use it. I really don't have any automated data insights. I really would like to do a little bit more collaborative analysis with my retailer, but more importantly, it's difficult for me to change what I did last year because the change is going to come from the data science optimization to change my plan going forward. So looking at it from an industry perspective, a lot of manufacturers, specifically in a recent survey, the benefits that this can provide, once you can make it happen, they're seeing a huge improvement, or can see a huge improvement to forecast accuracy. And at the end of the day, from a revenue growth management and from a data science and optimization standpoint, that's the most important factor. That's the most important metric that drives everything downstream, is how good or how accurate is the optimization. Because a lot of manufacturers really struggle with this, the forecast accuracy. And if you're trying to go down the road, or you're going down the road of revenue growth management, controlling supply chain costs and so forth, out of stocks, everything those mitigating circumstances that's impacting that revenue growth, forecast accuracy always is the root cause. The other big component is that of the respondents in this survey, 36% said, I'm eliminating poor performing promotions by doing scenario planning and so forth. I'm eliminating those promotions, and I'm able to reinvest that information, or that's cost and the expenses. But from a large respondent, the companies, they just don't have these capabilities in a format that's seamless for the end user who's ultimately doing it. So there's still a room for improvement. A small portion of the respondents saw an improved relationship with their retailers. They're able to create insights that can be shared with the retailers and help drive a more collaborative plan. And ultimately, only 21%, and these are kind of small numbers, but only 21% found that they're able to improve their go-to-market strategies by identifying kind of the low-hanging fruit that they could change. What's a better product to run, or merchandising condition combination. So really what the numbers are painting in the survey is there's still a lot of room for improvement, but there is a capability there, and other manufacturers can follow into those benefits. So when I talk to manufacturers who are wanting to go down this optimization journey, I said, all right, let's talk about kind of where you are, or where you're wanting to be. So help them define their sophistication level. And I know this sounds, you could call it sophistication, you could call it maturity, but essentially it's where you are as an organization to where you can embrace this type of technology and this type of change in a planning strategy. So what optimization maturity is, as a manufacturer, I have varying sophistication levels when utilizing optimization. It could depend upon my revenue size, where I'm at in the category. Am I in third share or fourth share in the position in the category? I may not have the data, my category, or I don't want to purchase the amount of data. So it's difficult for me to put together a value proposition as a manufacturer if I really don't understand where I'm at. Because optimization is a really, really powerful tool, but you need to understand how you can apply it at your particular level. So with some manufacturers, so let's take a look at it from a kind of an entry level, typically the entry level. And with the entry level manufacturers who I talk with quite often, these are CP manufacturers. They're typically, of course, in food, beverage, drug, general household products. And these are manufacturers that have brand loyalty, but they're typically in about that third position. They may be behind a large player like a Colgate-Palmolive or a Procter & Gamble. They have a small category share, and they're about $1 billion in annual revenue, with trade spending in that 20 to 30% range. And the reason why identifying that entry-level understanding is what the data science and the optimization, one of the aspects of that is you're going to change what you're currently doing from a planning standpoint, which means you'll have to go in and have a conversation with the retailer or with the buyer to say, I'm going to change what I'm going to do based upon what my data science and optimization is telling me. So setting that tone with the manufacturer who's going in that entry level, be prepared to be in those tough conversations. Because the what aspect of it is these manufacturers are struggling at first initially to really understand who their base consumer is. And this is the way I look at this, the entry level, the what aspect is, this is that first step you take when you're starting to maybe go down the journey of revenue growth management. You need to understand who your base consumer is. This will help drive, or this will help with the trade spending. If you have budget constraints, it'll help you identify if you're getting category share losses, your base eroding, as well as margin erosion. So if I can take that first step of the entry level and understanding who my base consumer is, that's for essentially the first step in this revenue growth management journey. So why manufacturers struggle to get to this level is they have to contend with some pretty powerful pain points. They're always on deal. It's difficult for me as a manufacturer if I'm always promoting my product, if I'm always at a temporary price point. It's difficult for me without data science to truly understand who my base consumer is. I also have multiple overlapping merchandising conditions through either by period, by tactic, and so forth. They're constantly overlapping, so it's difficult for me to extrapolate out all that expense cost per tactic and the volume related to the incrementality of the promotions to understand that base customer. It's also, of course, the lack of available and affordable point-of-sale data. So that's another thing that a lot of folks, manufacturers I talk to, ask me, is this something, do I require point-of-sale data? Can I use shipment data? I say, well, it's really going to depend where you are in the category, where you are as a customer. So the opportunity here is for revenue growth management. Ultimately, that's where this all lies. That's the overarching umbrella to better understand it. For CP manufacturers to get to this level, they're going to have to align. And what I talked about before, I have to align, am I going to use consumption data or shipment data as my base volume forecast? Again, from a point of sale data standpoint, that is the best source to truly understand your consumer. But that can be difficult if I'm in, say, a frozen or refrigerated channel, or a canned or shelf-stable channel where I don't have the product turn like I would have for a frozen or refrigerated. So as an organization, taking that first step to, based upon the data availability, is it shipment or is it consumption, determine, okay, as an organization, we are going to focus on our read-only shipment data. It may not be the best, but at least it's a starting point. By establishing it, the capability then will help allow for, I've determined this is my base volume. It'll help me with my budgeting to deliver the incremental volume comparative to the objectives. Because that's essentially what we're doing for customer planning. We're saying, here's our base. Here's what I know what I'm going to get. If I understand what that is, I can say, all right, here's how much volume, the incremental volume between base and objective that I'm going to need to deliver the objective, and how much is that going to cost. It's also directional to post-event analysis. If I have now some sort of base volume, I can do some sort of post-event analysis, truly maybe understand of trade efficiency. Is the promotion effective and so forth. It may be directional, but at least it's a starting point. But more importantly, as I start to compare those year over year, month over month, and comparative to the actual, I can help then begin if I'm getting sort of any sort of base volume erosion. Am I funding my base? Am I truly, if I'm truly have that base customer, if I'm losing that product loyalty. So it's important getting to that entry level. Those are the steps to kind of have to take. The first step is that entry level. It's understanding your base volume and then deriving the benefits of what it will be. Because this could be an internal sell from an organizational standpoint. That's kind of the entry level. And once I get to that level, I can start really, truly, maybe more effectively running my business. More importantly, get to that revenue growth management. So let's talk about next steps. How do I get to that level? So if I'm within an organization and I say, yeah, I'm just kind of floundering with the revenue growth management or truly understand my base consumer, I need to start building the capability internally. Identifying, is there resources that I need? Is there additional information? Is there some sort of technology? What needs to happen in order to get this information? I may have the resources already to derive what this is, but I just need to understand who can I do or who can I get to formulate and put this together. The second component is to kind of derive a proof of concept. If we do this, here is the X. This will help build a business case if it's required to maybe potentially invest in technology or additional data. If you can build the capability and the proof of concept, within that proof of concept, focus on maybe some quick wins in maybe key country customers or brands. By using this quickly, can I eliminate this promotion or pull this back or drive this forward? There could be identify some quick wins to help build the business case internally. Throughout all the next steps on all these levels, you're always going to see senior leadership support. It has to have the senior leadership support in order to make this work across the organization. And then lastly, what are those key metrics? There are key metrics. It could be as simple as accuracy or understanding an ROI calculation where I want to be. What's the lift percentage? What's the kind of a benchmark that I want to get to? That'll help drive joint value creation. So that's important. So the next steps as a manufacturer or an entity is that I want to get to this first entry level. These are the kind of metrics and next steps I want to get to. So from a sophistication level, as I say, this is kind of a journey that I have to go down to. So I speak to a lot of customers as well who are, as I mentioned, who are starting this journey. What's my first step? Those folks, they're fun to talk to because they always typically want to jump in the deep end of the pool. But let's just kind of start. But then I talk to a lot of folks where they're at, I understand my base, but I don't have enough, maybe support from my retailer or internally to truly get to a planning capability where I'm being at an intermediate level. And what I define as an intermediate level, intermediate level, these are manufacturers I mentioned, they have evolved and have a clear understanding of their base, and they have a pretty good understanding of the incremental lift that coincides with each merchandising condition. It's factored in with the seasonality and so forth, so they're able to do good prediction. They can do post and pre-event, or they can do post-event analysis. So they've gotten to a point where they can improve trade efficiency by determining where they should invest. But now they have to get to the next kind of component of that, the what. What I have to do as a manufacturer, that intermediate level is utilizing a what-if scenario within the planning process. Now, these are those tough decisions that has to occur, because during this what-if scenario planning process, I'm now engaging and really analyzing the frequency and depth and combinations of promotions that I've relied upon for the last several years to deliver to a retailer that I may have to change. And in that what-if scenario, the changes could occur in my high-low and promoted pricing strategy, potentially going over pricing thresholds. You may have to do some target pricing, something like that. But in the what-if scenarios, when I create scenarios within my planning capability, I'm overlaying different merchandising tactics. I may do heavily on my promoted pricing in the first half and the second half. I'm doing different combinations of merchandising mix and merchandising conditions with varying frequencies and depth within my plan in order to determine what's the best plan it is to run. Now, of course, as an organization, during this what-if scenario, one of the things you have to overcome is, what is my growth opportunity? Is it revenue growth? Is it top line growth? Am I gaining category share? Or am I improving business planning? These scenarios, depending upon the outcome, say scenario one, heavy pricing, may deliver the top line, but from a cost standpoint, may not be, may be detrimental from a contribution or net revenue standpoint. So when you're having these discussions, the what-if scenario plan, you're ready to go to this level, the question always is, we may have to deliver a plan in that scenario. I don't spend as much, but I may not deliver as much volume, but that volume I do deliver is going to be much more profitable. So it's having folks getting their head around in that intermediate level in that what-if scenarios, that it may be different instead of the old ways of doing things, of throwing money at it and drive volume. I have to think of it, I'm driving more profitable volume. So I need the why do I want to do this is because that way it'll help me understand the scenarios that I want to deliver. Within that intermediate level, here's the big opportunity. As I mentioned before, it's creating and understanding each condition. But the opportunity is that you'll begin understanding that each condition has a coinciding cost. And the coinciding cost can then drive the scenario and what can be delivered. The optimization standpoint, when I create that scenario, the optimization data science is going to predict, of course, what the volume is. And again, this goes back to one of the key factors of any sort of data science and optimization is how good am I, or how good is my tool at forecasting that incremental volume. Because the scenarios that I'm going to have, they're going to have different merchandising conditions. They're going to have 3 or 4 scenarios that have varying costs. And by predicting that, I'm now making decisions that's going to drive or improve revenue growth management. Those combinations of merchandising conditions also be scenarios which contain different combinations of products. And a lot of folks don't think about that. They think of the different merchandising conditions of what a scenario, but what if I tag in a premium brand with a kind of an everyday brand or something like that, where I'm getting margin rich? So start thinking and not necessarily in how do I want to tactically spend, but more how do I want to product and tactically position. There could be opportunities for new points of distribution and so forth. So now it's encompassing a broader scope of not just trade spend and trade marketing, but the aspects of product profitability and so forth within the plan. The next step in this situation, this is going to be huge. RGM entry manufacturers, to get to this level, they need to prepare to sell in the plans, as I mentioned before. You're going to be making changes to plans that you typically run. I always like to refer to the old last year's plan as a Sally plan. You're not going to be running the same as last year's Sally plan anymore. You're going to have to run something different. So you're going to have to make those sales. You're going to have to sell that into your retailer and buyers. You're going to have to empower the sales teams. Empower them with the scenario planning capability, empower them with the tools and what they need to deliver from a revenue, from a profitability standpoint, to make sure they clearly understand it. This creates, too, the opportunity to align better with the retailer goals. So it further it'll help enable that joint business planning. So when they're selling to the retailer, what does your strategy say? What does your optimization say? Because they're doing the same things the manufacturers are doing. But again, as I mentioned before, senior leadership on the business priorities and engaging senior leaders, making sure they're engaged. And more importantly, from the revenue growth management standpoint, it's end-to-end alignment. Because we're not only just creating a plan, how much we're going to spend to deliver incremental volume. It's taking that information and spreading it downstream. It's saying, okay, here's how much volume I have to deliver. So it's engaging the entire manufacturer's ecosystem from sales, finance, all the way down through the supply chain. So making sure that there's end-to-end alignment on key organizational deliverables. Because there becomes those constraints within the RGM community. I can't produce that much volume, or I have a cost component relates to gas this year. I'm not going to be able to deliver. Those have to take it into consideration. Speaking of constraints, the constraints, I always like to talk to the advanced level of optimization. Now, if you speak to industry folks, industry analysts and so forth, it's the typical response when you ask the question, is there really truly a large group of manufacturers who are effectively utilizing data science and optimization, and they are truly at that advanced level? The response you typically get is that there's only really a handful. And of those handful, only maybe certain brands within it. And they've tried about every sort of optimization of data science that's out there. But these manufacturers that are at this level have truly, really evolved. They've evolved as they understand base and incremental. They understand what it needs to deliver trade efficiency. They're utilizing and doing trade efficiency. But then they're doing forecast, they understand their forecast accuracy. They've got what-if scenarios down cold. They have they're category leaders, which leads to one of the big things that they can do when they're at this level. They can be influential with their retailer partners. So when I'm advanced at this advanced level, I've kind of evolved where I'm at the best I can do from a trade efficiency standpoint. Now I have to start factoring in, why do I want to? What else can I do? What else? Why do I need to evolve? Well, based on the information I list and conditions and combinations, I've kind of optimized where I can best do. I'm beyond the what if, and I can influence the retailer. So I just, from a revenue growth management standpoint, I need to evolve and get better. And what else can I bring to the table? So what manufacturers are looking for, or what they're trying to get to, is a constraint-based type of data science and optimization. They're taking variables or constraints that are having in their throughout their ecosystem. There could be supply chain lacking of this, or they need to promote that, or the objective is to grow this brand, or I need to get to a particular business rule, or a particular net price or spend rate per unit. I have specific constraints as a company that I need to put in place to then say, okay, here are the constraints, build a plan around those constraints that delivers against my objective. So it's not only the constraints of the trade spending, but it's constraints across the organization. Where do I need to effectively grow? Where can I effectively grow? How much do I want to invest from a supply chain standpoint? So you tell me, data science, you tell me optimization, what's the plan I need to run? Because once I've developed that plan, I'm going to sell that into the retailer. Because again, at this level, I have that retailer influence. The opportunity here is, of course, improve the joint business planning. I'm already a category leader, I'm already pretty good, but I can now not only drive profitability in RGM internally, I can be a better retailer partner. And if you ask any manufacturer out there, they want to do that because that's the retailers are helping them, of course, sell their product. But more importantly, it's broadening that even further the RGM scope, because I'm getting ahead of those constraints and from an objective or planning standpoint, and I'm optimizing the entire sales and supply chain infrastructure because I'm identifying where the constraints are coming and I'm building a plan around that. So it's a huge component and driver for RGM when I'm a manufacturer at this level. Now, if I'm at that, intermediate level and I want to get to this level, if I want to get to this level, I need to be prepared to sell in a plan very similar across the retailer. I need to make sure that I'm in a position because I'm going to be given a plan based upon constraints. Of course, I have to align across the organization to say, this is a new planning style. We're not going to just throw spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks, and that's the plan we're going to run with. We need to align across the organization. We need to first be prepared and have conversations with a retailer to make sure that our alignment is true from a joint business planning. If we're saying that we're investing here in this product or this region or something like that, we need to make sure that that's similar to what the retailer wants to do as well. You're having those conversations because that'll be defining the retailer's expectations. And of course, again, this is something that at this level, at all levels, end-to-end alignment across the organization to make sure I understand, this is going to be a different way of planning. I'm not doing the what if and then taking the best plan and trying to sell it in because I know that's a good plan. I'm now going to a retailer and say, this is what we're going to do. There could be some detrimental components to this. So I want to understand across the organization, make sure that I have end-to-end alignment, that everybody understands that's the key deliverable. So all those things, this is a lot of investment. This is a lot of work. So if I'm going to my boss and I'm trying to sell in this, hey, I heard from this guy who's talking about sophistication levels, but we have to do this, and we're at this level. This is what I need to invest in. You kind of want to understand, well, what are those benefits? Very high level. You can get really into the weeds and you can get really into the details of muck and mud regarding these optimization benefits or data science benefits for revenue growth management. But at the end of the day, you're getting greater visibility at all levels, greater visibility for business and opportunities. Your visibility to identify the opportunities, the risks. You're going to eliminate poor performance and reinvestment. And more importantly, it's not necessarily maybe on top of finance and sales and trade and so forth. There could be business process improvements because you've aligned end-to-end that can be some of the top benefits. So it's not only about trade. When you start thinking for an RGM, a global across the organization, in the end for the entire infrastructure, you're looking at all business process. As I mentioned, in talking to the industry folks, and industry analysts, and multiple clients I talk to, forecast accuracy is the key. For these data science and optimizations, you're going to see pretty graphs, pretty charts, and all this stuff. But at the end of the day, it's how accurate is the forecast, because that's driving everything else. It's what's the cost? Are we overstating or understating the numbers? And most CPG manufacturers are struggling with this area. They're year over year. I'm not good at forecasting. And that could be a huge win, and maybe 60 or 70% of the win in RGM of just being improved forecast accuracy. And lastly, improve relationships with your retail partners. As a manufacturer, working with my buyer and the retailer, if I have this good relationship going, I'm going to be the first to ask for opportunities. It's easier for me to get new items into distribution and so forth. Better promotional activities, better facing, better execution. So it's being a better retail partner is really, really powerful. Now, like I said, in talking with manufacturers that I'm working with today, talking with the analysts, folks in the industry and so forth, the key findings, optimization with revenue growth management, that is the top priority, without a doubt. And I don't think you're going to get any arguments there. The organizations are just pressured to focus on profit, efficiency, and focus what the consumer is at the center of all their decisions, and they need to optimize pricing, promotion, tactics, and the supply chain. Of course, the obstacle is understanding what is needed. What do I need to get to each level? Because that's what's driving RGM mindset across the entire business units of the organization. I don't know what I need to do to get started. It's too big. But I need to kind of break it down to the different sophistication levels to understand where I'm at and where I need to go. So now I'm given kind of a starting point on this entire journey for optimization and RGM. So that's a lot. It's a lot to think about. So John, we'll stop here, and if we have time, we can take a few questions.
Sure, Joel. We have a few. The first one is, how is the joint planning scenario that you describe changing where retail media networks are figured into the mix and the partner discussion?
That's a great question. So where where the joint business planning is starting to evolve to encompassing the media and the digital component. And what I'm seeing with manufacturers and retailers from a joint business plan, they're trying to do a better balance between the two. How can I do, is it better analysis to do, a digital media component? How can I, but at the end of the day, the big struggle is understanding if I invest in the digital and if I invest in media, is it driving volume? How do I measure the volume that it's driving? So from an optimization standpoint, that's difficult because I can't put my finger on exactly where the volume is coming from. But if I start to overlay and understand the components I do know, I can kind of get a delta or variant. But the where it's looking is it's evolving, and it's certainly in the discussion when retailers are talking with manufacturers on their planning.
Okay. Another one, how do I know if I am ready to be at an intermediate or advanced level?
Oh, that's always the first. Do I know? That's always the first question. How do I know if I'm ready or not? Always the question is, I ask, are you charged with growing? Do you have to grow the business? Are you charged with growing the business with not increasing trade spend? If you're in a position where the old plan is not working or you're pressured to deliver something else, you're ready to make the step into either the entry, intermediate levels first, or of course advanced. But more importantly is, do you truly understand, if you do a self-assessment, say, do I understand where I can get more bang for my buck or invest and so forth? Then if you don't know, then you are in a position that you have to get started.
Alrighty. Another question, is it necessarily bad not to progress to the next level?
No, not at all. As I mentioned, it depends upon where you are in the category. If I'm, say, a flower manufacturer and I don't promote that often, maybe just understanding who my customer is good enough for me. So it's understanding where I'm at in the category, what's my competitive position and so forth. Maybe I only have to get to the entry level. And then from that perspective, I can get a true vision to where I need to invest. I can get a true understanding of the baseline I need to deliver and the volume I need to deliver from the supply chain and so forth. So I don't really have to be forced to go to each level. I don't want to get to the third one. I don't have to be at advanced. I may be okay just to stay at entry and I'm good. It just depends on who I am as the manufacturer and what category I'm in.
Alrighty, we have one more. How does this align to my own revenue growth management plan?
Well, I think it should fall, it should echo it. I mean, all this should be already kind of embedded within that RGM plan. So I think the way the RGM plans I've seen with manufacturers, they look at it as an all-encompassing base, incremental, data analysis, what if scenarios. The problem is it becomes a really big thing to bite off at one time. So from an RGM, all this should already be in there. But the way it should look at it is I should phase it like this sophistication level, because you have to think about it as a journey for RGM. And some customers are far along the journey. Some customers are just beginning it. Some customers are floundering where they are with their RGM project plan. But at the end of the day, is if you divide it up to where you are and where you want to be by journey, by level, by maturity, by sophistication level, you'll put yourself in a lot better position.
All righty. Well, that's all the questions that we have, Joel. I want to thank you very much. That was very interesting and informative. For anybody who wants to continue the conversation with Joel, you can reach out to him at joel.cartwright@vistex.com. So thank you very much, Joel. See you next time.
Thanks, John. Appreciate the time.